a diehard Chiefs and Cyclones fan, and this former Cyclones edge rusher shattered Big 12 records. My name is TJ Caldwell. Welcome back to Cyclone Kingdom. Top 5 defensive ends coming your way. We just talked about defensive tackles and giving love to Damon Tucker and Dominique Orange and all them boys. So who are the edge rushers that people will remember for the rest of time in Cyclone history? Keep in mind, we're starting off this channel doing top 5. So once these top 5s are done, they're going to be pretty much immovable unless someone cracks the top 5 in the next couple decades. So this is a fun one-time thing that we're doing to kick off this channel, so make sure you stay liked and subscribed to all Chiefs and Cyclones content. Number 5 on the list is a guy that people forgot about in the 60s and 70s, but when you look at his stats, you look at his NFL resume, you look at what he brought to the table, you look at pictures of him, you have to respect the man. It's Merv Krakow. Merv Krakow, whatever you want to call him. He was a mountain of a man at defensive end. Part of those teams where in the Big 8, you knew you were running the football. You knew that you had to stop the run. And not only did he stop the run, but he was able to get to the quarterback when they tried to give a little counterpunch and a little sneaky pass play. Merv Krakow said, not today. Not today. You ain't doing that in my house. And the 60s and 70s Cyclones teams will forever be remembered for guys like him. They're not remembered for success. They're not remembered for many great teams. You know, the only team that's it's won the Big 12 rather in Iowa State football history is 1912. So Krakow was part of those teams that kind of get lost in the shuffle. But if you see pictures of him and when you watch highlights of him, which I still need to find highlights, continually putting out the feeler for you guys. If you guys have highlights of these older time Cyclones, I would love to see film of them. But Merv Krakow has to get mentioned. He's in the Iowa State Hall of Fame, got inducted in 2007, and we appreciate him for what he did in a Cyclone uniform. Number 4 on the list, another NFL defensive end. Keep in mind, Iowa State didn't just start pumping out NFL talent more recently with Matt Campbell. They were pumping out NFL talent back in the 90s and 2000s with Reggie Hayward in the Dan McCarney era. A guy that was a huge, you think of Calais Campbell and how tall he is and his deep voice and all this different stuff that Calais Campbell is known for. That's who Reggie Hayward was at Iowa State before he was even in the NFL. He was bringing the boom from the outside. He did not go touched to the quarterback. There were so many times where he was unblocked to the quarterback and brought a lot of success to Iowa State. Those teams, remember, were the ones that kind of put Iowa State football a little bit back on the map in that Insight Bowl victory in 2000 against Pittsburgh. Obviously, everybody remembers the Jermaine Billups punt return. But Reggie Hayward in the all-red Cynado uniforms that people want to bring back to Iowa State. Reggie Hayward donned that well and was a great Cyclone and a great NFL athlete. Played, I think, 8 seasons in the NFL. So a great career for him as well. And he deserves to be on this list just because of his sheer size. Looked like he could have kicked inside and played defensive tackle. Instead, he played on the edge, and he made teams regret it. He made teams regret him coming off the edge, going unblocked, getting to the quarterback, and bringing Cyclone football to where it is today. Jermaine Billups in that punt return, Reggie Hayward, Seneca Wallace, keep in mind, came right after that. Dan McCarney bringing Iowa State to the brink, and then Matt Campbell ultimately bringing them to the precipice of success in Big 12 championships. Guys like Reggie Hayward set that standard of trust in the process. So he's number 4 on the list. Number 3 is a guy that, if you check out our exclusive Iowa State podcast at Cyclone Central, you recognize this guy when you think of the Cynado helmet and the iconic nature of the fighting tornadoes, right? The Cy, the tornado, the helmet, the color scheme, the white uniform with the red Cynado helmet. You probably imagine Sean Moorhead. I mean, he was perfect for that Cynado era. He wore the little, restriction bands on his arms coming off the edge. Looked like a linebacker, but played defensive end so well. Oh my goodness, this guy was unreal for Iowa State in that post-Seneca era a little bit, in the 2005-2007 era. One of the best of all time. He's top 10 all-time in sacks in Iowa State history. Just a guy that people need to give more recognition to because he wasn't your typical edge rusher. I'm a Chiefs fan right now. Who we got as R. Mason Thomas is not the typical Chiefs pass rusher. Sean Moorhead was not the typical Iowa State pass rusher, but he made you pay for it. He got to the quarterback. He was a force to be reckoned with on defense. As a part of defenses that weren't very good, keep in mind, Sean Moorhead had to make up for a lot of just Swiss cheese defenses Iowa State had back in the day, and he did. He got to the quarterback. He made teams focus on him. He made teams zone in on him as a guy that, man, we can't let Sean Moorhead beat us. That was his type of thing. Around the same time, I believe, as Alvin Bowen. So Iowa State had some really good players on defense, but defenses as a whole obviously were a little bit sketchy. But number 3 is Sean Moorhead. Last 2, these are guys that I grew up watching a little bit in college, especially out of college now. Number 2, and a guy that at the time had the Big 12 record for sacks, Jaquan Bailey. Jaquan Bailey and what he did for Iowa State football. When you think about Uwazurike, who we've already talked about, when you think about Brock Purdy, when you think about Breece Hall, when you think about what Cyclone football was and how it got on the map. How did Iowa State football get on the map? It was because of guys like Jaquan Bailey. It was because of guys like him and bringing Iowa State defenses to be feared, to be recognized, to be admired. Guys, keep in mind, Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, these are top coaches in college football. Nick Saban, a former top coach in college football, right? They were modeling Iowa State's 3-3-5 defense by asking John Haycock how he runs it. It was because of guys like Jaquan Bailey that made that successful. Because your front three doesn't work if you don't have an Uwazurike in the middle or a Dominique Orange in the middle. It doesn't work if you don't have a Jaquan Bailey on the outside, right? A Sean Moorhead type on the outside. So what Iowa State did in bringing that 3-3-5 to the national stage, think about that Will Grier game where they sacked him 7 times because he was just running for his life all night because you had 8 guys in coverage and 3 dudes just bull rushing the passer. I mean, it was awesome to watch. And Jaquan Bailey is one of my favorite Cyclones because of his character, because of who he was as a person, because of who he was to Cyclone Nation, and because of his talent, man. At the time, he was the best pass rusher in the Big 12, breaking records left and right until this guy came into the picture. So Jaquan Bailey, thanks for being a Cyclone, but you're number 2 on the list because of Will McDonald. When you think of top 10 athletes in Iowa State history, basketball, the baseball program when it was still a thing, gymnasts, top 10 overall athletes, Will McDonald's on the list. Freak of nature. A guy that went in the first round of the NFL draft as an Iowa State defensive end. Iowa State was not known for defense until John Haycock and Matt Campbell came on the scene, and they created first-round talents out of Will McDonald. Guy could do a backflip as a defensive end. That is unheard of, especially in this day and age of football. Now you have your Max Crosbys and your Micah Parsons and your Myles Garretts. Those are still bigger-based guys. Max Crosby's a little more slender. Will McDonald looked like a slot wide receiver, dog, with added muscle. He looked like he could have guarded somebody out in the slot. And he said, nah, fam, I'm going to go over your tackle and beat him to the ball 20-plus times in my career. You guys ever heard of Von Miller? Remember him? The guy that won a Super Bowl with the Broncos, and he's on the Bills now, and he's still available to potentially join a team this year. He was at Texas A&M, and he was doing work at Texas A&M, sacking the quarterback, Big 12 record this, Big 12 record that. Will McDonald has more sacks in his career than Von Miller at Iowa State. Most Big 12 sacks of all time. That's Will McDonald. And who he is on the Jets now is because Iowa State made him. I told this story on Cyclone Central on our podcast of Iowa State content over there. The Hard Knocks. You guys remember Hard Knocks when Aaron Rodgers came to the Jets and Hope was back in New York and blah, blah, and it lasted 4 plays? Well, the training camp of Hard Knocks was one of the better seasons of Hard Knocks I've ever seen because of how they were just the cinematic nature of what was going on in New York with Aaron Rodgers. Will McDonald has a clip in there of him just bullying. I think it was a Texans lineman or somebody. And the lineman looks at him at one point and says, bro, you're nice, bro. Where'd you go to school? And Will McDonald didn't, sheepish, some school in Iowa. You probably never heard of it. He said with his chest, Iowa State. Iowa State. And the man still respects Iowa State. He's jumping over cars still, guys. The talent is through the roof, and he's a Cyclone forever. forever. Shout out Cyclone Fanatic and the shirts they've created for NIL over the years. I have a shirt by Will McDonald, should have worn it for the video, called Unblockable. Literally says Unblockable, and it's Will McDonald doing work, I think, against a Kansas State lineman, which is so perfect. He's one of the best of all time and one of the best athletes in Iowa State history, not just football. So he's number one on the list, and I don't think it's close. So respect to all those guys. Leave your comments down below. Who's too high? Who's too low? Who did I forget about as defensive ends in Cyclone football history? We got a couple more top fives as we roll throughout this offseason before we get into the 2026-27 college football preview. Looking forward to all of it. Stay liked and subscribed for all Chiefs and Cyclones content. Check out the new logo, by the way. We love it. As always, roll Clones. And how about those Chiefs?